You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. A lot to get to today. Some people are a little concerned that in Trump's State of the Union speech, which I thought was excellent. I thought he did a really good job. And we're going to dissect a little bit more of that. But people were concerned about the health care, the time devoted to him talking about healthcare. And, as we predicted with the second term, the first term was about repeal and replace Obamacare, and apparently dealing with it head on wasn't going to work. And so when people always said, well, gosh, it's been since 2009 and nobody's been able to repeal and replace Obamacare. Well, you can't. It was 2,200 page bill. You mess with it, it's like cutting the red wire of a bomb. It implodes the healthcare system. It was designed that way so people couldn't touch it. But what its Achilles heel is what if we stop giving money to the insurance companies and we give the money to the patients, where the patients could choose the insurance plan rather than we giving money to insurance companies for them to continue to rise rates and give crappy deductibles and not cover medicines we want. What if we put the power to the people? And so it's a subtler approach to starting to transform the healthcare system that got destroyed with Obamacare. I understand, during the Great Recession, we had to expand Medicaid temporarily. And unfortunately, people stayed on Medicaid, where now I think we have, 72 million people, on Medicaid, whereas it was, the whole purpose of Obamacare was to get employers to pay for your insurance. But employers decide, look, it's too expensive to pay for insurance. You're mandating insurance is now too expensive, so we're just going to fire people, and we're going to now think of ways to have cheaper labor costs, and hence tech, automation, AI. So with the exception of the pre-existing condition clause and there being physicals covered, I think Obamacare, we have even yet to see more devastation that I believe that bill caused, which is why you never, ever come up with legislation just off the cuff, throwing stuff in there without understanding the ramifications. And sadly, the ramifications of this is the average person doesn't have their doctor. They don't have a doctor. They're using remote or telemedicine options to try to handle, their whole health care issues there. And thank God telemedicine is there to help, but people can't afford to go to the doctor. It's just a mess. So Trump's speech was 1 hour and 47 minutes, a record long. And we knew he was going to talk. I'm actually, guys, I'm actually shocked it curtailed that. I thought it was going to be longer. So I was actually impressed, because when he said, when he was, in closing, I was like, really, already? I expected this to go on for hours. But he said, as it pertained to healthcare, according to MedPage Today, I'm also confronting one of the biggest ripoffs of our times, the crushing cost of healthcare. Since the passage of the Unaffordable Care Act, sometimes referred to as Obamacare, big insurance companies have gotten rich. It was meant for the insurance companies, not for the people, with our government giving them hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars a year as their stock prices soared. He has introduced the great healthcare plan. I want to stop all payments to big insurance companies and instead give that money directly to the people so they could buy their own health care, which will be better health care at a much lower cost. Now, that, he says, my plan also requires maximum price transparency. That's a big deal. So, this was something that it would have been nice if he expanded on it, but with the State of the Union, you can't give enough time to what he needs to say. So I'm fine. I'm fine with the snippet of it. I'm fine with the summary and of what, how he's going to move forward, because the healthcare crisis is an absolute mess. You could lower gas prices. You could address housing costs. You could, but once somebody gets sick, boom, they're back in the, they're back into poverty. If you have a family member that's sick, that doesn't want to go to a state-run nursing facility, you're going to go bankrupt trying to support them and provide care for them. I mean, it's bad. We don't have a system in place. And the money that could have gone to free clinics or could have gone to subsidizing this went to insurance companies. Meanwhile, you have a plan with like a $10,000 deductible. Now, those have gone down just a little bit, but still, my insurance plan, ridiculous deductible. I don't think my insurance company has paid at all for any of my health care because I just don't meet my deductible. And they get rewarded by the subsidies. I'd really like to see those subsidies go to the American people and say, look, what we're going to do is we're going to give you guys health savings accounts, and we're going to give you guys buying power. And the insurance companies are going to not get money from the government. And if they want your business, they're going to have to come up with a good product and stop screwing you over. So it's good. Is it going to work? Will insurance companies just miraculously come up with a $250 or $500 deductible? Probably not. I miss those days. 2008, you would have a $500 deductible, and I remember that being a lot of money. I remember having a patient who had a $2,000 deductible, and we were like, "Damn, that's a lot." Yeah, but you'll get through it. If for some reason you do end up, finally meeting that with your other medical expenses by October, let's already set up your MRI or your scan so that you could get it under the year. But I remember panicking over $2,000 deductibles for patients. Now I would give anything to get an insurance policy that's not thousands of dollars a month with a $2,000 deductible. Thank you, Obama, Sebelius, and Pelosi. So I know people want to. They're really trying to get doctors to be against Trump, and doctors are mixed because they want healthy foods, they want less preservatives, they want a better healthcare system. So I don't have an issue with what he brought up in terms of that. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So it was my husband's birthday last night, so we went out for dinner. That was during the State of the Union, but I taped it, even though I'm sure I could watch it online, but I'm old school, so I tape it. So after dinner and after, we did the birthday cake and happy birthday to you, I decided to run over to the TV so I could, watch the State of the Union. And I started from the beginning, so I didn't post like everybody else was posting throughout it. And it was long, an hour, 47 minutes. But as I said, I was kind of shocked. I thought it would be longer. But there were some moments in it that I thought were fantastic. And I know I'm Facebook Living, so you might not get this clip. But one of my favorite moments of not only were the Purple Hearts and honoring, military veterans and Korean War heroes, and that, not only that, but was when the U.S. hockey team was honored. So I just want to play that clip really quickly.
And I say, no, 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 you're going to win again. You're going to win big. You're going to win bigger than ever. And to prove that point, here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in.
Hockey team's coming down right now. They're happy boys. You got the brother Hughes together. You got them waving their gold medal. USA. They're getting a standing ovation. So, and what I liked about that is we had some drama during the Olympics. And, reporters were trying to get the athletes to comment on politics and geopolitics and alliances with, and the athletes, they just need to concentrate on they're at the Olympics, okay? They have to concentrate on their sport. Don't force them to have to now come up with a politically a PR'd formatted answer, that could unfortunately then mar their performance because of all that the criticism they get online, and so seeing that the women's hockey team was invited, the women's hockey team said they had some academic other, shall we say, commitments and travel issues that prevented them from coming. Trump said that they are going to be coming to the White House, so he is going to be honoring them if they want to come. But the men's team, they were pretty excited. I mean, they were partying in Miami. I mean, the night before, probably hungover, whatever. But I got to tell you, a bunch of them came. And they got to, stroll across the White House and whatever. And what was really, really nice is it was, to me, unifying. We forget that politics is a very tiny sliver of what America is supposed to be about. Okay, America is about freedom. It's about the American flag. It's about our amazing athletes. I mean, you don't want to take away from what the Olympians do to take the camera off of them and say, yeah, but, we're looking at tariffs and we're looking at that. I mean, nobody gives a damn about tariffs. I mean, we want to see our Olympians ski and speed skate and win hockey. And to see USA, and you saw everybody in the chamber, I know Democrats chose to stand up or not stand up depending on who was being honored. And it was not a good optic when there were families who lost loved ones to criminals who were in this country illegally. The Democrats kind of sitting when they were honoring the families who were, crying and losing loved ones. Not a good optic. And I'm not sure why. That, some Democrats stood up, but that I would have, that I'm not sure why that was a choice at the point. Somebody who lost a loved one you support, but, seeing everybody stand up and cheer for, our athletes who represented America, very, very cool. And it was unifying. And the State of the Union, as I said, as I said yesterday, it is constitutionally mandated for the president to have conversations with Congress. And so, now they're publicized, but before, he had to talk to Congress. You couldn't just be in the executive branch and hide. You had to come out and talk to Congress and talk about the State of the Union and discuss things where everybody could hopefully work together. What do you want to improve? And what's good? What should we continue? And what do we need to improve on? And so anybody who didn't show up, if they didn't have a doctor's note, they didn't do their job, because it's constitutionally mandated for there to be that discussion, that State of the Union. I mean, now we publicize it, and it looks like that, the president is also addressing the masses and the public, but the main purpose of that, per the Constitution, is for them to talk to Congress. So if Congress doesn't want to show up, or I think there were like turtles, there was an alternative, like the alternative Super Bowl show. The Democrats had like an alternative State of the Union, and there were like these frogs. I don't know. I don't know. And I tried to watch both, and I couldn't because I was at dinner with my husband. But we really forget what we're here for. We're here to represent our constituents. We're here to make sure that we're just not single party. And so the Olympics and sports and Team USA, it kind of reminded us what we're doing here, what Americans are supposed to do. And I know people say, oh, that was a ploy. And they were actually going after the hockey players who were invited to go to the White House. Almost like that. I mean, I am sure there are women hockey players. I'm sure there's a bunch of Olympic athletes that would just love to be able to see the White House and to be honored by the president. I got to tell you, if Trump, Obama, Biden, Bush, if anybody invited me to the White House, I'd be like, oh, hell yeah. But you see, what society wants to try and do, or media wants to try to do, is mark you and label you, so you get this scarlet letter on you, or whatever, so that everybody knows you're right, you're left. But politics change. The Kennedy Democrats are much different. We're much different than the Clinton Democrats. We're much different than the Biden Democrats, who are apparently very different from the Ocasio-Cortez Democrats and the Zoran Mamdani Democrats. So, it does change. And unless society understands and has that flexibility, you're going to start seeing people say, to hell with this. And just not, you're going to actually lose engagement. And so I thought that was very engaging. Bestowing Purple Hearts and Medals of Honor, very, very cool. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf and Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom were members of the West Virginia National Guard. They were ambushed and shot while on patrol. Beckstrom died in the shooting. And I'm not sure if she's getting a Purple Heart, but Wolf, a posthumous Purple Heart, but Wolf, 24 years old, was critically injured. We were praying for his recovery. He was there, and he made it to the State of the Union. It showed he survived. He survived being shot in the head, and he was awarded. That was absolutely just amazed. Unfortunately, he was shot by, I believe, an Afghan national, or somebody who was not supposed to be in this country. Nobody should have been shot. Nobody should have been killed. And Wolf and Beckstrom's families were in attendance. Wolf was awarded the Purple Heart. U.S. goalie Connor Hellebuck got Medal of Freedom. That was very cool. You could see him be emotional with this. I mean, what amazing goalkeeping during the USA Olympics. I mean, or during the USA hockey team against Canada. So congratulations to Hellebuck and all the hockey players. And then a 100-year-old Korean war vet was awarded the Medal of Honor for this aerial battle he had with Soviets. He was 100 years old when he was in attendance yesterday, but he received the Medal of Honor, the U.S.'s military's highest honor for valor in combat. He did heroics during an aerial confrontation with Soviet MiGs. He shot down 4 of them, 4 MiG-15 jets during a 35-minute dogfight with 7 Soviet jets while flying off the coast of the Korean Peninsula, considered one of the longest aerial engagements in U.S. Navy history. So Trump said tonight at 100 years old, this brave Navy captain is finally getting the recognition he deserves. He was a legend long before this evening. So he got a several minute, one of the longest standing ovations. And then Chief Warrant Officer Eric Slover, who was wounded during the Operation Venezuela for the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, he was also awarded the Presidential Medal of Honor. So, I mean, I thought these things were beautiful, beautiful moments. You know, we'll talk about more about some of the substance of it, the other substance of it, but I thought it was pretty unifying, and I thought overall, well done. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
And we are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So one of the biggest fears people had, especially in Hollywood and the upper echelon high society individuals, one of the biggest things they were fearful of during the Biden administration and over the past few years was getting canceled. Well, now they have a bigger problem. They have a much bigger problem. And now they fear getting arrested if they hobnobbed or, at all associated with Epstein. And the Jeffrey Epstein files, as they are becoming more and more transparent, are revealing a lot more individuals were connected with him. And, I'm of the mindset that anybody who participated in the pedophilia, in the sex trafficking, in the at all with any of his criminal activity needs to be held responsible. That's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. However, if nobody has thoroughly vetted, and researched why every single name is popping up, it could be a mess. And so, we're now seeing, arrests in connection. I think police in London have arrested Peter Mandelson, the former British ambassador to Washington, as part of an investigation with his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, he's 72 years old, and London's Metropolitan Police arrested him Monday on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Now, you don't really get a lot of information, but from what we understand, police are investigating whether Mandelson passed confidential government information to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein when Mandelson was a UK cabinet minister between 2008 and 2010 at the height of the global banking crisis. And according to NPR, it's the latest development in investigations into prominent figures over their suspected dealings with Epstein that have roiled the UK. Prince Andrew has been arrested. He's been released, but over his misconduct in public office. There's people have asked, did Epstein work for the CIA? Did he work for Mossad? Did he work for, I just don't know how this person who just, to me, when I look at him, I want to throw up, but that's because of what I know. I just don't know how he was able to but probably, I mean, this is what I'm not rich, so I don't know what it's like in these rich circles, but my guess is you donate, you throw money here, you host parties, and you get yourself to a point where high society then hangs out with you. And I mean, he hung out with former presidents. He hung out with the Clintons. He hung out with Trump. He hung out with, British royalty. And it's and then was a part of this linked to, were their activities linked to either espionage or were their activities linked to the sex trafficking? Apparently, there was a picture of Stephen Hawking around, I guess, bikini-clad women. And, that was, I guess, a part of the Epstein files. As you know, he's a theoretical physicist. And he was, I guess, looking happy that there were women with him and cocktails and all that. And so, do we think he participated? No. But now the family, is, talking about how the photo was taken at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel on the Caribbean island of St. Thomas. He posed for the image after having delivered a speech on quantum cosmology at the Science Symposium. And Epstein attended the same event. Not sure why the hell Jeffrey Epstein was there, but he was. And so the Hawking estate declined to say who took the photo or offer an explanation as to how it ended up in the Epstein files. Now, Hawking died in March of 2018. He suffered from ALS. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, required round-the-clock care of a team of nurses. And so he's brought up now in the Epstein files. And also, I believe another, I think a Harvard professor, let me see, I think a Harvard professor has just quit because of his name being brought up in the Epstein files. Apparently, he and his wife, I think, had a honeymoon trip to the island in question where the crimes were happening. Larry Summers, we're being told, will resign from teaching at Harvard. He had a personal friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. He's going to give up his university professorship title, which is the highest distinction an academic can receive at the Ivy League college. I mean, you can be an assistant professor, an associate professor, full professor. And The Economist said the decision leaving the institution was difficult. That's his specialty. He's an economist. Did not give a reason for the departure, but he has been under intense scrutiny. And I believe he and his new wife, Lisa, visited Epstein's Little St. James Island in December 2005, 10 days after their wedding. And apparently he corresponded with Epstein up until his final arrest in 2019. So where do we go from here? And so, I mean, most of us, we're not on the Epstein file, so we're good. But what if there's somebody that we have been in contact with that ends up being the next Jeffrey Epstein? This is what's kind of worrying people. Where, wasn't it Glenn Powell, one of the actors in Twister and the Top Gun movie, where he refused a photo with a canceled actor because, quote unquote, his face was toxic. And when I first heard that, I was like, okay, come on. Really, you're going to, and I don't know who this actor was, and I don't know why the actor was canceled. But then on the other end, is he being, cautious? In terms of, we're always trying to take pictures with people. We're always trying to do selfies. And then we're posting selfies. I mean, I ran into Shaquille O'Neal, and he knew who I was, and I was like, okay, really, really cool. I go, let's get a picture. Great. Now, Shaq is awesome. No, but how many times have I run into people, take a picture? What if later there's a file of files with that, And I understand that whoever's being investigated are people who traveled to the island, people who had much more involved relationships. But Whoopi Goldberg's name came up. I mean, you're getting all these people's names coming up. And then if at all look at what happened with cancel culture. With cancel culture, if you at all even looked at a MAGA hat and read all 4 words, you could be canceled. I mean, that's how vicious, it was. And so people were so afraid They started dyeing their hair. I mean, it was just, people were so afraid of getting canceled. Let's just throw some blue streaks in our hair, or purple streaks, and hopefully people will leave us alone. And here, we're jumping to get into a picture with somebody. We're jumping to hobnob and be at galas maybe we do need to start going more private. Just because you stand and pose for a photo with somebody. We do it because we don't get autographs anymore. If you notice from stars and from, we're not really getting autographs. We're trying to get a picture. Like, look, you see, we're best buddies. Look at this picture. We're smiling. They're pointing at me. We all look like we're great friends. But if you're just met them for the first time, that picture can last a lifetime. And these pictures, people know how to make it look like they've been best friends and good friends for a long time. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. So maybe we do need to rethink who we're jumping in the photos with, or who we're, I see Shaq again. Big cuddle, big hug, getting in pictures with them. I love Shaquille O'Neal. But we think about, look at how you have people who you would have never even thought would have been connected to something remotely illegal, and then all of a sudden their fall happens, and you're like, okay, I better erase those pictures online. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I keep getting questions about mRNA vaccines, and for those people who got the COVID vaccine, what risks are they imposing on others if they donate blood? Or if the FDA is looking at mRNA vaccines for future diseases, what risks could there be? And it's interesting because the mRNA technology, there's some a little bit of controversy. One, the mRNA technology had been around for a while. However, when it came to the COVID vaccine, we came up with the COVID vaccine awfully fast. We spoke about this early on, and how this was years ago, how we talked about how I think it only took anywhere from 19 to 21 days for the pharmaceutical companies to get to work. Trump had told pharmaceutical companies, you got to get to work on this. This is not good. And there was a race between, Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca to come up with a way to fight COVID. And we spoke about how, wow, they came up with this pretty fast. And is it because during the NIH funding of COVID, did they already have the framework? Did they already have the knowledge of the virus? Well, yeah, COVID's been around. SARS has been around. I mean, we had the 2002 outbreak, which, according to the Singapore Institute of Health, was the outbreak of SARS back in 2002 was a lab leak. And then in 2004, in China, there was a couple people who died from SARS, and that was deemed also a lab leak. So that's why when COVID happened, I was like, okay, another lab leak. And then everybody said, oh, that's misinformation. That's misinformation, Dahlia. Dr. Dahlia, you can't say that. And I'm like, look, that's my suspicion, because, I mean, third time's a charm. I mean, this isn't their first rodeo. And then finally, other government agencies years later go, yeah, we think it was a lab leak. Because of SARS, and even though COVID-19 still different, I'm not surprised that there was some sort of database that pharmaceutical companies could draw from. I was a little surprised at how quickly they could make this. I mean, it was faster than the flu vaccine. I mean, I was like, dang, that's pretty fast. But the mRNA technology, even though it's been around for a while, this was very new for the public, getting a mRNA vaccine all of a sudden for something that's killing people. So not only are you freaking out that there's COVID and that your friends and family members are in the hospital going through cytokine storm, and then of course the numbers were a little confusing because, when we couldn't test for COVID, hospitals were told, I remember reading this to you guys from the CDC saying, look, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck. So you could put on the death certificate suspected COVID. But, was it really COVID? Did COVID induce the heart attack? Did COVID cause them to cough so much that they got into a car accident? And so I had suggested back then to just get a spreadsheet, get an Excel spreadsheet. Those who truly had COVID, once we tested for it, those who had COVID-like illness, those who came into the hospital with something different but tested positive for COVID once we were able to test, and then those where they died, but we don't think COVID was involved. They were COVID negative. Let us look at the data and decide, but I can tell you as a physician, the numbers were high. COVID was killing. So now we have a vaccine. We have the mRNA vaccine, an mRNA vaccine, which fascinating technology, but it scared some people. You're using mRNA, you're using a genetic material that has to now teach your cell to convert and make spike proteins rather than our flu shot that gave you an exoskeleton, so to speak, of flu where there's no virus in it and it's and then your body learns the shape. You couldn't do that with COVID because of the way the COVID was shaped, the basic ball with the spikes. So we had to teach the body how to identify the spike proteins. Remember, you don't want your body to fight, and go into a Guillain-Barré syndrome and fight your own immune system. You want, when you make a vaccine, 1, for it to work, 2, for it to be accessible and cheap enough for people to get, and then 3, you want to make sure that it is very, very specific to the virus or the pathogen you need. And so, and I have to admit, the science behind it is pretty impressive. We come up with a way where if we can't inject spike proteins, and we don't really want to do that because they'll just fall apart, then we teach the body to make them, and then the immune system learns them. From immunology, I have to admit, it was fascinating. Now, were there side effects? Yeah, there were side effects with the vaccine. And, with the myocarditis, and we talked about how, even though COVID could cause myocarditis, we saw an uptick, especially in young men, as it pertained to myocarditis and inflammation of the heart. We had a doctor die of ITP, where he lost his platelets. The immune system caused him to lose his clotting factors, and then he died of a hemorrhage early on after getting the COVID vaccine. And the family, said we still recommend vaccination because COVID is killing. And this is what our husband would want. He was an OB, I think, in Florida. And so when you saw cases like this, it just reminded us that for some people, the technology is going to be awesome. And then for others, it could be concerning. But how they got the mRNA into the body is it had to be in a protected liposome, because that mRNA would be completely destroyed. But it wouldn't last. So when people say, yeah, but that mRNA is going to get into other people's bodies, I don't believe so. It really gets destroyed pretty quickly. In terms of altering our DNA, the mRNA doesn't touch the DNA. The DNA vaccines, like the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca, was where DNA came in and then got into the cell and then told the DNA to make mRNA and then to make the proteins. So there was a little bit more DNA manipulation with the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca vaccines, but we used the mRNA where it was the mRNA that just talked to the cells, had the cell cytoplasm do the work, and the DNA wasn't necessarily involved. So, when people say, well, look, for those of us that got COVID vaccines, and those of us who didn't, how do we keep us being a virgin with I got the 2 vaccines, and then I told you I would do the booster to see what its efficacy was, what the side effects were. After I had left arm pain and breast swelling and axilla swelling and not able to get my mammograms and all that, I, declined doing any more boosters. I did, however, not get COVID. I mean, the vaccines worked for me. I didn't get severe COVID, and I'm very grateful. But yeah, I got 3 vaccines. So every time I donate blood and I post, somebody messages me or somebody asks then, well, what about, somebody getting your blood if you had the vaccine? And, my answer is, always look, when you look at a hypovolemic trauma patient, or when you look at somebody who's, struggling, keeping up their red blood cells because of cancer, et cetera. I mean, they need blood. I mean, we screen it for HIV, we screen it for, and we don't send blood to the hospitals that we think could hurt somebody. But, if somebody says, well, I want blood from somebody who never got COVID vaccinated, and I was asked that actually 6 months ago, if I need a transfusion, what do I do if I don't want somebody who had COVID vaccine? Well, the blood banks don't necessarily screen for that. And the reason why is because you don't really see the remnants. And in fact, when people ask about the studies, one of the latest studies we had, I think, came from 2024. Let me try to give credit where credit's due. It's from Boros et al. And they talked about how even though we believe that it only lasts 30 days, they did a study where they found that the recombinant spike protein could persist 6 months in one's blood. And they also looked at how the heart muscles took in, they found, for example, an increase in heart muscle 18-fluorodeoxyglucose uptake detected in vaccinated patients for up to 6 months. So right now the studies are saying if there are any spike proteins that are remaining, they don't disintegrate, right away. They could persist for 6 months. In terms of years, I don't think we have any data that it persists for years. But yeah, it should be looked at still. If you're worried about receiving blood, you could always look at Autologous, where you donate your own blood before your procedure. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.